We've had Victoria 3 for 6 months now, so it's about time we talked about what are some good opening strategies. I want to talk about one that really appeals to me that I try in most of my games and have great success with it, and it involves Oman, or more specifically, Oman plus their Zanzibari thing down here. Alright, here's how it plays out. Step 1, get some kind of navy. You don't need much. If we look at Oman, they've got 5 navy. You need a little bit more than 5, you're fine. Now I picked Belgium to start with. They have 0 navy. Not a good one here. I have to build up Belgium's navy for this to work. But Prussia's navy, wow, it's perfect for it. What we're going to do is declare an interest in Arabia, Persia, and this part of Africa down here, Zonj. And once we have those interests established, knock on the door for Oman and say, excuse me, I would like Zanzibar and Laristan. And if you want to be a completist, don't forget to ask for the treaty port here in Baluchistan. Now, if you want to get the whole thing, you probably can. Depending on what mods you have, the infamy may be so low you could just swallow the whole thing and have a little bit of coffee production out here. But the reason we want Zanzibar and Laristan is because they open the gateway to East Africa and Persia respectively. By taking Zanzibar, this stretch here, you then get to colonize not just Kenya and the Rift Valley, but also Tanganyika and Lindi. These are areas that have very low malaria presence, so you can colonize them quickly in the very early game. Once you have Kikuyu and Hehe and all this stuff here colonized, you then get to start working up here in Equatoria, which also has low malaria, and you can start picking off these small African miners that give you a very negligible amount of negative press with other countries like England and France, countries who care about things. And if you've played your cards right and done quite a lot of diplomacy with France and England, who are going to be your 2 major powers in this area, if you've got trade deals with them, that trade deal keeps bolstering your relations with them. And if you have a defensive pact, even better. That'll also keep bolstering your relations. So you'll be able to pick off these nations like 1 or 2 a year. The small dent you take from relations by knocking them over is more than repaired by the good relations you have from trade. By taking Zanzibar, you open up East Africa, Persia. This is one where probably England and Russia are going to be the ones that take the biggest offense here. If you don't share a border with Russia, you don't care. You just let them get mad. Ha ha ha. If you do share a border with Russia the way Prussia does, then, sending out good relations to them at the beginning of the game helps to soften the blow there. But even so, you can start conquering Persia, and you want to conquer Persia because when we look into its states, we see potential for opium, which is a high ticket item there, and you're going to need some for your armies in the late game anyway. And out in Khuzestan and Fars, these are areas that are famous for their oil production later in the game. You're going to want that. If you're Germany and you've got Hanover and Elba, yeah, they make some oil. It's not enough. If you're the Dutch and you've got Friesland, you got some oil. Austria, you got some in Galicia. Yeah, it's still not enough. You want Persia, and you want it as soon as you can get there. Before the East India Company starts grasping out that way, before Russia starts banging its way through, if you're there first, you own it, you get to eat it. Yum, yum, yum. But you need Laristan here. Now, the reason why, okay, let's go back to that navy thing. Oman has 5 navies. Persia doesn't have any, but you still have to do a naval invasion to get there, and Persia does have a bigger army. I found that in the early game, sometimes it's a roll of the dice whether or not a European country can knock over Persia with a naval invasion. But if you get this little strip here from Oman, you've got a land border. When you declare the crisis and you mobilize your armies and you put them right here on the front line, they don't have to arrive on a boat. They cross the border and start kicking around Persia and win that war. Once you've got Persia, then yeah, you can decide if you want to play the great game and expand into the rest of Central Asia. I personally enjoy taking out Balochistan, so that's why I want to remember to get the treaty port here. Also, Sind is not attached. You will make the East India Company and England a little upset if you knock that over, but again, if you have good relations with England, that keeps things in line. And the Sikh Empire, wow, take a look at this province. 13.4 million people. Get it early on, exploit the agricultural welfare, and it can also be a source of soldiery. Oh yes, you want that, because should you have a war here in Europe for whatever reason, it's nice to call upon your colonial armies to help man the front lines. Very handy thing there. So, the Omani Gambit. Start off, pick a fight with Oman, make sure you take Laristan and Zanzibar no matter what, and that opens the door for expansion in Africa and Central Asia, where you're going to get rubber and oil and opium, things you need for the late game.